I'm not the best video editor out there by any chance. I'm just trying to master this skill exactly like you guys are, but I'm already at the point where I'm charging a couple thousand for a regular 10 to 15 minute YouTube video. So as you can see here, this was for 2 videos, this was for 2 videos as well, this was for 1 video, and this was for 1 video as well. So in this video, I'm gonna walk you through my thought process behind editing live so that you can pick up a thing or two. Just because as of right now, the issue is, as vast majority of video editors do, you're probably focusing on completely wrong things. You're focusing on creating fancy animations and adding 3D texts. While that stuff does help, the viewer at the end of the day doesn't really care about it. What the viewer cares about is if the video is nice to watch. And how nice the video is to watch will determine how much you get paid as a video editor. Just because if the video is really nice to watch, then obviously a lot of people are gonna watch it, your client is gonna make more money, and not only they will be able to pay you more money, they will also be willing to pay you more money. And that is exactly where you want to be. So if this stuff doesn't help, like we just found out, what does? And the answer to that is storytelling. Storytelling is a very broad term, but in this video, I want to cover such aspects of storytelling as pacing, flow, and music, because I really did find these exact concepts to just take my videos to the next level once I started applying them. So let's begin. Okay, so in this module, I'm gonna take a script of one of my clients' videos and kind of walk you through the script and teach you how I think about pacing, flow, and identifying sections in order to, do music changes, and all this stuff is done for just one thing: to make the video really nice to watch, to make the video drive results for your clients, and therefore for you to get paid more money as a video editor. So let's begin. First thing, what we're gonna do is we're gonna break up this video into sections, because really when the client sends you the footage, it looks exactly like this document. It is not formatted at all. It is usually just voiceover lines. You don't have any visible lines of sections, usually nothing like that. So let's kind of go through it together and identify the sections first. Okay, so he says making money online is just solving a puzzle. This video is going to be about making money online, apparently. When you've got a puzzle in front of you with the pieces all over the place in a huge messy pile, getting those first 2 pieces to connect feels impossible. Okay, so here I want you to pay attention to the things that are actually being talked about, because that is important. Up until this point, the first 2 sentences, he's still talking about the same exact thing of making money online is a puzzle. Let's keep on reading. The thing is that after finding just the first 2 pieces that click together, not only will you make your first dollar online, but it lays the foundation for even greater success. Okay, so it is still about making money online, being exactly like solving a puzzle. The next dollar will be easier than the first, and it will keep compounding into more and more success. I would say this is still the same exact section, just because it is, related. It took me 4 months and about $580 that I didn't have to make my first dollar online. Okay, this is definitely a new section. Have you just registered this switch where the guy stopped talking about how making money online is a puzzle, but he started telling his story that, it took him 4 months and $580, whatever, to figure it out. Let's keep on reading. But that's only because I didn't understand what I'm gonna be sharing with you today. After my first dollar, it took me only 8 months to reach 6 figures in profit after tax, and it wasn't long after that until I grew my 7-figure businesses. I would say up until this point, it's still the same thing, because he's telling his story, how he went from basically 0 to hero, but let's keep on reading. So today I'm gonna give you a blueprint to making your first dollar online with whatever business model suits you best, and even if you aren't sure yet, I'll give you a business model that I use that you can start for free today to make your first dollar online. This is definitely a new section, just because he transitioned from talking about his story to talking about what the viewer is gonna get from this video. This is a completely new separate topic. Okay, so this is intro for this video. We broke it down into sections, and now let's think a bit about the music. You can do 3 music tracks just because it's 3 sections. That makes sense. But I'm gonna be honest, these 2 last sections, especially the last one, they are kind of a bit too short to have their own soundtrack for. So how I would do it is I would have one soundtrack for this section, then start another soundtrack for this section, and keep it on actually, but with a bit of a asterisk that I'm gonna explain a bit later. Keep it on for this section as well and end it right about this phrase. Now, let's actually talk about this asterisk. And I also want to explain a very important concept to you. The concept of powerful phrases. As you can see, we have 3 sections. We already identified that. And if you pay attention to the last phrase of each section, so in this case, it's the next dollar will be easier than the first, and it will keep compounding into more and more success. Here, it wasn't long after that until I grew my 7-figure businesses, and here it is, you can start for free today to make your first dollar online. You see how powerful these phrases are? And not only that, the way we speak and communicate as humans is you do section switches in conversations as well, by the way, just like people do it in videos, just because in conversations you also cover different topics throughout one conversation. And after having this kind of powerful ending phrase at the end of one section, you would leave a bit of silence naturally. Just because if you switch to the next topic right away, it's going to be weird and the transition is going to be jumpy and unnatural. So a really cool thing how you can just improve your pacing so much in videos is by utilizing powerful phrases. Just because you can make them even more powerful by having no music under it. If you remember the pacing module where we were talking about breaking patterns and how breaking patterns is good just because it adds variety, and variety is something our brains are naturally drawn to. So the same thing is here. The last thing you want your video to be is you don't want it to sound like one very, very long sentence where it's music all throughout. Even if you do music switches, even if music is different, still just listening constantly to music and then voice over and over and over again as one long sentence, it is very boring. Our brains get tired of that really quickly, so you need to be breaking the pattern. And the thing is, powerful phrases are an awesome way to break the pattern. Just because for all this time, you've had a song playing underneath this voiceover, right? But here, I would just have a natural song fade out using the techniques I showed you, either manually remixing it or using the essential sound panel, but have song fade out here and have no music for this phrase. Because it's gonna, or honestly, maybe for this phrase. Because remember, I told you in the flow section, we speak in sentences, but usually, or not usually, sometimes sentences are split into kind of parts, into mini sentences, and this sentence is actually split into that. So the first part of the sentence is here, and the second part of the sentence is here. And the word "and" is kind of a separator, right? So 2 options. Either have the song fade out here naturally, or have it fade out right here. And this way, you're gonna break a pattern because it's gonna be silence. It's just gonna be a voiceover, and this powerful phrase is going to become even more powerful. Because remember what I told you about pacing, where you have, let's say, fast cuts over and over, but then you do one slow cut. You have one scene on screen for a while, maybe like 5 seconds. It breaks the pattern, and not only that, it makes this scene that's on screen for a while way more impactful, just because all the cuts that were prior to it were fast, and this is different. And breaking the pattern, our brain immediately starts paying attention. So, powerful phrases are a really good way to transition between songs and break the pattern. I would have the song fade out right here or right here, honestly, depending on the context, depending on how you can remix it, and depending on just what feels better. Doesn't really matter, both work, I think. And I would start a new song right with this section. And then for this phrase, it wasn't long after until that I grew my 7-figure businesses. This is like a mic drop moment. This guy basically went 8 months to reach 6 figures, and it wasn't long after that he reached 7 figures. This is crazy, right? So it's supposed to be impactful, and you make it even more impactful. You make it register in viewers' minds even more by having no music, and also by leaving a bit of silence actually after the phrase. The same thing here, as I already taught you in the pacing module. When as humans we want to say something impactful, we naturally leave silence after it, and silence makes phrase that was before it more powerful. So not only you have no music, you also leave some silence here and then leave some silence here, and it's also gonna make transition to a new section more natural. And then I wouldn't switch the song. I would use the same song for here, maybe just use a different pocket, different section of a song to make it fit very nice. And I would say fade it out here, just because fading it out here doesn't really make sense, because it's basically the same thought. I would say this comma should even be almost removed, just because this part of a sentence kind of comes in one, that you can start for free to make your first dollar online. And again, this phrase is supposed to be powerful. You leave some silence after it as well, and start a new song with whatever is going to come after it. Another thing about transitioning in between sections and how to make the transition even better is to have a transition in visuals as well. So it's either cutting from A-roll to animations or B-roll, or vice versa. You can have a guy, for example, saying this phrase and showing him speaking, but then for this phrase you start a new animation, a new B-roll. You just have some kind of transition in visuals. You cut to something else, something that's different from this. And the same thing applies to transition in between these sections as well. And this kind of applies to what I was talking in the flow module, where for example, if we take this sentence, he's talking about a blueprint, and you don't want to show a graphic of a blueprint. However you want to represent it, that doesn't really matter. You don't want to show that right when he is about to say the word blueprint. No, you show it here at the beginning of a sentence, just because, trust me, that way it is, first of all, it's way easier to edit, and second of all, the videos are actually way better, because new concept should be introduced at the beginning of a sentence. Here it's a new concept of a blueprint that he's about to share in this video, so it's being introduced at the beginning of a sentence, not when the guy is about to say the word blueprint. And also, yeah, it's gonna make editing easier for you, just because it's gonna be easier if you have him talking here, A-roll, and here you need to do some kind of transition. As I said, you need to show something else, not just B-roll, to make transition in between sections smoother. And you won't need to come up with anything crazy just for this part of a sentence. You just show whatever he's talking about here. And this is actually how it's supposed to be shown. Another example would be, again, with that blueprint. If we take this sentence, he's saying, but that's only because I didn't understand what I'm gonna be sharing with you today. He's talking about the blueprint again. And if you wanted to show the blueprint here, you show it right here at the beginning of a sentence, not as he's about to say what. No, you introduce the concept that's being talked about in this sentence at the beginning of a sentence. And if you want to implement what we've talked about in the pacing module, where you do, you add cuts in order to make it faster, then sure, you can add cuts, but still the concept should be introduced right here. So, for example, you make a graphic and animation of this blueprint that he's gonna reveal in this video, and you introduce it here, but then you cut to another angle right about here, then you cut to another angle right about here. So instead of having basically one thing just playing along on screen for this whole sentence, you do two cuts in between. So you show three different angles of this blueprint animation. You somehow speed it up. That doesn't really matter. You increase pacing by that. Sure, you make it faster. But the idea is that the introduction of a concept happens at the beginning of a sentence. Alright, if you watched the entire thing, I would assume you found it valuable. And as you noticed, I mentioned that this kind of training was one of the parts of my coaching program, one of many. And honestly, if you stuck until the end, that probably means that you're a bit more advanced in your video editing journey, just because we didn't talk about basic concepts like creating keyframes and animating positions, right? And if that's the case, then my coaching program is made exactly for you. It is made for guys who have already made a couple K with video editing and are looking to get to that next level, get to 4, 5, 7, even 10K a month. So if that sounds anything like you and you're interested, go ahead, click the first link in the description to book a call with me. And on that call, we're gonna find out if you're actually a good fit to work with me one-on-one. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one.